Hi, so I'm gonna have a go and try to explain how to get your models, your ready LP and HP models through a process with Substance Painter 2 straight into Arma. I'll try to keep it short. So I've pre-made a low poly model here, and I have also made the high poly model here that I will bake onto it. As you can see, this is just a short example. Small example model, but it demonstrates some complex shapes. The high poly is basically a turbo smooth with some supporting edges on the low poly model. And it's really purely for demonstrating purposes. Now, when you're dealing with your low poly, the most important thing that you have to take care of is that your smoothing groups are set up correctly. If you take a look, I'll just delete my unwrap for now. If you take a look at the editable poly, you'll notice that we have smoothing groups correctly subdivided already. In this case, all I did was select on my model, tweak the angle to what I wanted it, and press auto smooth. Notice that by default this is at 45 degrees, so if you do auto smooth, I would get this bottom section also smooth, which is not what I want in this particular case. So you can either go ahead and edit it manually by giving it a different smoothing group, or as I said, tweak the angle a bit so that the sides are also have their own edge. This is going to be important later, you will see why. But you see that these sides here, they have their own smoothing groups. They don't intersect. This inner sphere also has its own smoothing group, as do these. It's important to always assign a smoothing group, so do not leave, let's say you see that there's a lot of polygons here that have the same, let's say they're all coplanar. So if I would select them all right now, you see they do have a smoothing group. Even if I unassign all smoothing groups, they will act as if they all have their own smoothing group. So that is not correct. Even if they're coplanar, assign them a smoothing group to keep them all in the same group. Now this becomes important because your UV modifier, your UV and wrap modifier, your UV groups will have to follow the lines of your smoothing groups. So right now you see from the initial sphere that I subdivided and extruded from, I do already have some lines. They're incorrect, so if I open my UV editor, there will be rather just one big square. Now what Max 2017 did very importantly is introduce flattened by smoothing groups. This is a feature that is super important and has made the development a lot easier from nowadays. So what I do is I will click this, and notice what I said here. We have a problem, so this I need to fix. I will collapse it back to poly, and somehow I thought I see they don't have any smoothing groups applied. So again, I will select by angle and give it 1. This I will clear all and assign a group of separate groups. This is very important because this your bake will completely depend on whether you have this right. If you don't, you will have to come back and redo it. So I go again, apply my unwrap, select everything, go to the editor and perform the operation again. And you see now all my parts are completely divided in the correct way. You can double check this with the borders of the green lines. Now it's not very handy to have the sphere in such a manner because now it's a closed loop with problematic. So these kind of things you will have to resolve yourself. Most of them flattened out fine. You can check it by applying some sort of checker material. Let's give it a 10-10. Make it visible in the viewport and apply it to this thing. So we see we have problems on our spherical shapes, specifically these stretch marks. Notice that the bottom parts flattened almost correctly. We'll fix that as well. So I'll do that first. I'll select this part, and what I'll do is I'll just apply a relax by polygon angles. I'll do that for all 4 sides. Now what I used to do myself, and to make my life easier, I would basically know that these edges are the same and I would just stitch them. So this edge and this edge, I would go ahead and stitch them, because for texturing purposes this would be a lot easier. But now we're completely given up hand painting, we're doing things through Substance Painter. This is no longer necessary. But smoothing group and UV island continuity has to be followed. So now we've corrected all of these. Now we have the bottom part, that's this. Also make sure that it is all stretched completely. Fine. I'll do a save. Do sample. Now these parts should also have been done correctly, but I'll do a relax anyway. These fixes you will have to perform yourself, and you'll have to very carefully inspect your model visually. Usually when these parts are relatively flat, they will cause no problem, so the flatten will work quite well. But things like cylinders and spheres you will have to fix later. So these things I can move ready aside, so they're ready. This one, slight adjustment. Okay, so now we have the spherical sides, and the best thing to handle them is to try first the pelt map. I'll start and relax, and you see that will give me a relatively good result. There's a little bit of stretching, but that's okay. If this is because this shape is rather, let's say, reminiscent of a UV island, so while the outside shell is not, because it does have it is a closed shape, the top one is relatively okay. And you notice here that the problem is normally you would see a green edge where the island would be starting and completing, like you see here. So this part will really need to be fixed. So this one is rather okay. We can maybe relax it a bit more. But looking at the squares and the checker pattern, that should be fine. This one will need some work. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to perhaps add pelt map borders to seams. So now I will instead of having one big island, I will have two islands, one of the front side and one of the back side. I can easily do that by just saving. I do this because it sometimes crashes. Don't worry, it will try to subdivide one first. I will try to pelt map one, and then you can select the other and repeat the operation. So now I can inspect, and everything looks good, to me at least. Okay. Also on the outer shell everything looks okay. So now we're ready to pack our UVs. I will just select everything. I'll save again just in case, and I will mash some of these buttons to do the packing for me. So the padding is something you have to take care of. I use also a program called iPack. It runs recursively some algorithms to try to pack your UVs a bit better. For simple things, I don't mind using the max UV packing tools. Just have it rotate, and we'll try to find the best arrangement sort of for you to maximize your usage of your UV space. Okay, so that's our low poly model ready. Convert to editable poly. You see our UVs look rather nice. And what I'll do now is I will assign some different materials to the high poly because I want to bake a material ID map, let's say, to be used in Surface Substance Painter. So simply I'll just open I'll create a few colors. The best result would be to have high contrasting colors, and maybe green. Oh, still have LP selected, so I'll just go here. I can collapse the high poly. I don't need it to be maybe a bit too. Well, it's really smooth, so maybe I'll go like this, and I'll assign green. I'll invert my selection, assign red, and maybe I want on top here, I want a square that will have a different material. Again, the intention is to show the workflow, not to make anything really pretty. This part, no, I will actually shrink it a bit and give this maybe another color. Let's go some purple. Maybe I want to have a rubber lining or something. I'll try to find, so this is the center line. As I said, we'll have, yeah, in purple blue maybe not the best idea, so I'll make yet another color. Maybe yellow to this selection. That looks sort of okay. Now our high poly is ready as well. So what I'll do now is I'll save, and I will export it as a, let's put it to my desktop. I'll put it as sample high poly, and I'll save it as a FBX. This is important because FBX actually stores the color information. I'll store smoothing groups, turbo smooth, blah blah blah. This I just leave as all default, and then I can go back to my low poly, and this I can export as normal OBJ, but also as the FBX. Usually what I do is I'll export it as a PX as well. That's no problem. When I have some animations when I'm exploding some of the model parts, I tend not to export in VX because the VX also exports animations. You can turn it off, but I sort of don't want to bother. Okay, so I'm ready to start with Substance Painter. First I'll do is I'll create a new project. Do a PBR metal rough. You can also do spec gloss, but metal rough is fine. Yeah, let's do a spec gloss. It doesn't really matter. I will select my mesh, which is on my desktop. Somewhere, sample LP. Dirt tags, I will choose a 2048. So let's say if I want to in the end have maps which are 1K, I'll usually work in double that, so 2K. I don't need to import anything together with it, so I'll just press OK. So this is my model. Notice that the smoothing groups are all carried over, so it's nice the same way as I left it in Max. And what is important is that I have here the specular glossiness diffuse, and I'll add a base color specular level. So these are channels that I can add to your model. So these you will need. And ambient occlusion, very important. See size 2048, and now I will have to quickly bake maps. Output size, I'll choose my working size. I will load in the sample HP model. I will select everything. These distances you will have to tweak yourselves. Usually the frontal distance of 0.01 and rear distance 0.1 will work fine, but if you have baking errors, you always have to go back, and first thing to do would be check your distances. Remember that we're in a workflow where there is absolutely no painting over with Photoshop on your normal maps. You have to get the bake correct, even if it means baking it 20-30 times. It happens, doesn't matter. We're going to take off average normals because average normals is not how normals are displayed in the Arma engine. So we're going to take that off. We have always match, anti-aliasing. You can, for trials, choose none. So do a test bake. So your model will bake out nicely. You'll have these rounded edges that you really wanted. And right now we have no channels. So you have your just normal map. And press M to get your material back. So you see, as I pull out, the model looks nice. So I'll perform the bake again. With some parameters increased, I do want my anti-aliasing up to 4, maybe maximize the output size. Dilation width, it's how far your, let's say, island edges come out. So the padding, just 3. Again, these settings you have to tweak yourself in order to realize what the best result is. I have to choose material color for color source. I can use, yeah, color hue shift is fine. Ambient occlusion. Can put up the number of rays. Minimum occlude distance is fine. And I'll do another bake. This might take a bit longer because I have anti-aliasing turned on. Notice that it did specify that baking failed in the first try because it couldn't find vertex colors for IDE. That's why we have chosen material colors, and now the material IDs should correctly transfer. See how much longer it takes because the settings we ramped up the resolution and anti-aliasing. Here you can be a little bit patient, get a coffee, a beer, whatever is your drink of choice, and wait for it to finish. And believe me, you will have to do it 10, 20 times. Very unlikely that you get it right on the first go. The best I've seen, still redo it a couple of times, just because usually, of course, models are a bit more complex like this. You have to account for everything. Sometimes you have to go back and fix your smoothing groups and fix your UV maps. It's just a little bit harder. But I cannot stress enough while we wait the importance of having the smoothing groups and your UV islands corresponding to these smoothing groups set up correctly. This cannot be overstated enough. There are plenty, you can look on YouTube, there are plenty of videos that demonstrate what happens when it's not correct. Oh, it's taking a lot longer than I thought. But maybe my texture size at 4K was not really necessary. So I'm just going to abort this because otherwise it's going to record the whole evening. And I have to say, I do have quite a powerful machine, so it does usually take it is usually very fast. But once you ramp up numbers of samples and things like this, it crawls to a halt. Come on. As you can see, I'm using Substance Painter 241's, the latest version, and they made the changes to the shelves and filtering and creating your own subsets of the shelves. It's very nice, but I myself have to get used to it a little bit. If yours looks different because you're using older version, don't worry, the same concepts apply and should work. Oh, come on. Yeah. Let's crash it because this is taking way too long. quickly create a new project again. Base color, okay. Yeah, I'll just make it 2K, same definition as I have my project set up. Sample HP. ID from material color. No average normals. Maybe I increase the frontal distance a little bit to capture all those edges. But we have to test it out. And anti-aliasing, I'll just do 2. Notice that even though we had a hard edge here, the normal map is now doing its work and it's smoothing it out. Curvature, thickness. It's very important to bake out all the maps because they will be used in your smart materials all over the place. They are very useful tools. I recommend baking directly in Substance Painter because you can bake all the maps that are necessary for the material creation here. And one big advantage is that you will have everything you need in one place. So you don't have to switch between different software to have access. And it also knows which maps it needs. Okay, so I have my material set up. I'll save the project. Save as to my desktop sample. And let's do some basic texturing just for the fun of it. We'll apply smart material. Let's say I want the outer shell to be this. So I'll switch out this material, metal armor. What I'll do is I'll apply a mask with color selection and select maybe this. And it didn't apply because that should be that's strange. It could be that this is an old material that's not working with the current version, or something's wrong with this, but you can see that here is completely empty. So maybe something like this. It will apply it all over the place. What I want to do is give it a mask with color selection and pick my internal color. Let's see, we have metal. Base color. Let's add a fill layer to the bottom. Remove this layer. I'll add the rubber to mask color selection again. I'll pick the green. Notice that it at this resolution it didn't pick up that material ID color correctly. You can fix some of these errors by using some of the tools here. Like for example, you have polygon fills, which when you add another mask, or more, let's say if you add a black mask, it just deletes the other one. Oh, wait. Jesus. Rubber tree, this one. Yeah. Add paint, and then you can do a by polygon selection by just clicking on the polygons that you want included in this mask. So adding a paint mask. You can also add, for example, a generator and drop one. By using not filters. Oh, they did change it. Smart masks. For example, I use sun fade. Oh wait, generator. Sorry. A light generator which will mask by direction. So you can set your direction and you will see that a mask is applied in a manner from which, for example, like shadow casting would. And I would use this sort of masking, for example, for fading of tarps and things like this. So for this I don't need it. It's okay. Painted rusty metal. I'll add material. Right underneath. So smart materials are really not working very well. I'm in material mode. This I'll add to the outside. It's quite nice. This one I did want to apply indeed to the inner part. Can go ahead and edit some properties, like I'm gonna add a fill layer underneath and change maybe my color to give some nice effect, but I think you're starting to get the idea. Of course your final materials will be quite different and they will work much nicer and look much nicer, I'm sure, but I'm just gonna add one last thing, leather sofa to the top here, just to demonstrate to you masking. And you notice that there's a white line. That means that the tolerance is quite small, so as I start increasing the tolerance a little bit, it starts to fill up the spaces that it can find around it. If you go too far, you'll notice that it will start filling up other spaces, but basically it judges by color. Some other things that I can edit is maybe the one edges has a height map. Leather color, the leather itself. You can add some parameters. Just push it out. I don't know what this is. This is some weird ass thing here. And let's say I want to put my rubber on top of the red paint, and I will just select a bit more to hide out those white areas. You can also on this one color selection increase a little bit the tolerance. And here no, I don't want to go that far. But on the rubber, indeed, what we'll do is select, let's say, everything around, just for fun. If you do really have these thin areas that you need to fill up, yeah, I can suggest increasing the resolution of your bakes to just capture those vertices. A lot better. What I'll do is in this material have the rubber base. I might increase the height to push it out. You can also decrease, of course. And maybe decrease is better. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Do I still have here color selection? Yeah. Okay, that's good enough for now. Now, I am right now in material mode, so I'm able to look at this beautiful, amazing model in all its glory. Of course, this looks way better than with Arma lighting. Nothing we can do about that now. I have heard of a shader being written for a substance that will be able to, as closely as possible, replicate Arma lighting. Ooh, that's not cool. That's not cool at all. No. I actually don't know. I think I can deselect like this. Yeah, okay. Got scared there for a second. So yeah, right now we're in material mode. That means that it blends over all the maps together. What I am gonna do now is overlay my ambient occlusion map, and it is important because Arma does not let you, I'll put this at the very top. So unlike in PBR engines, Arma's ambient occlusion is not blended in very nicely. So I'll have a look where it has been saved, which is here, right, in your textures. This is resulting from the bake, same one. And what I should do is drag it into diffuse. Notice that it's really wrong, so of course the UV scale has to be brought to 1 in order to fit. So now it's completely overlaid there, and what I will do is I'll change the multiply to multiply, the mode, And just to demonstrate the difference with and without it, I will remove everything, all the channels except diffuse. But the difference is there. If you feel like it's not strong enough, just Alt drag to duplicate it a few times to increase the effect. And now if I press the button C, I can view through my channels, and you can see the channel name up there. What we're interested primarily are the ambient occlusion, the normal and the height plus base normal. So this is the maps that you baked plus the maps that generated from the materials, and your diffuse map. So diffuse map will be your primary color map or CO map in Arma. What we need is specular. This will be one of the channels in SMDI, but we'll need to tweak this, as you'll see. And glossiness, this will be the green channel in RGBI in your SMDI map. Right now it looks okayish, but we can start with importing it to Arma. So what I'm gonna do first is set up my texture exporting. This is a very important step to speed up your process, because from this point on you will be mostly tweaking, and the faster you can align your process into getting the output that you need without having to click too many times, the faster it will be. So I will save my model and I will go to export textures. Now what I need to do is go to configuration, and I already have mine made. What you can do is you can create a preset and what I'll do is just have a look. Yeah, if I create a RGB output map, and I'll call it project, and this is important. I mean, the better you set this up in the beginning, the better it will be. CO, oops, CO, and I will drag my my diffuse map here, all RGB channels. So sort of the same. Oh no, I have base color. That's strange. That should have been diffused, but okay. Maybe I have base color. RGB format. Okay, then I will need my AS map, which is the ambient shadow map. Here actually I will delete this, I did it a bit wrong. What I did is in the AS map only the green channel matters, so I'm gonna pop the ambient occlusion in the gray channel. Again, I have to double check. Opacity, I put opacity here, specular, SMDI, sorry, ambient occlusion, grayscale. This is not correct. Did I use a different one? I made a few, but basically project dot underscore AS should have opacity, which will be just white, and maybe it will be black. It should be just white. Okay, anyway, we'll check the result, and we put the ambient occlusion map. Maybe this one. Ambient occlusion in the green channel. Yeah. So then let's generate the normal map. No HQ. And in there we put normal DirectX RGB channel. And the last thing, the most important one, is the SMDI. So put the RGB map again. And project SMDI. By the way, the project variable will just be taken from the name that you saved in. So it will be sample underscore SMDI. Now here I will put opacity in the red channel, which should just give me a white output. I will put specular in the green channel, and I will put glossiness in my blue channel. Okay. So now I have my configuration saved. I might have to tweak it. I'm not sure. I will have to check the output. I will change the folder that this goes to. I'll put it in the P drive. I'll make a new folder called sample. And in sample I will make a new folder again called data. This is just common convention. And you notice that if I choose my new export preset, it will already know which maps to save for you. I will say to downsize them to 1K. Dilation I'll leave as set, and I want them as Targa because I want automatically have Bulldozer convert them for me, and I will export. I'll have a folder. The files have been saved out. I can quickly have a look at SA. So red, white, blue, white, green has the ambient occlusion map. This looks correct. Our CO looks good as well. No HQ should have all these little details on them that we textured in using the materials. And the SMDI should have a white channel. It should have specular in your green channel and your gloss in your blue channel. Now, I've dealt with this for a long time already, so to me they look okay. Not perfect yet because of the way Arma uses specular and glossiness. We will tweak them in Substance Painter instead of editing anything in Photoshop. Actually, Photoshop work has completely been eliminated from this workflow as to eliminate the amount of software that you use. So if you have Substance Painter, you can perform all the work. Now what I'm gonna do is go back to Max and have my low poly model exported as a 3ds into the same folder probably. Let's say P drive sample. I just find that 3ds carries over the smoothing information the best. I don't really have any problems. Sample 3ds, I'll preserve. Now I can open my object builder and import this. Of course I have all this RHS stuff. I'll open this 3ds. And I didn't set up my units in Max, so I'm just gonna try with. Okay. No. also didn't position it nicely, so I'll just drag it over to the center so it centers in Bulldozer. Okay, yeah, that's pretty centered. I hit F5 to recalculate normals. I'll run Bulldozer to see my input. Okay, that looks good. It has this weird shading. That's because of the shadows that it tries to generate, because we don't have a shadow lot. Actually, if I create a shadow volume that is empty, you'll see that they will disappear. So now first things first, I can already apply the CO texture. So I'm going to go to sample data CO, apply. Notice that Bulldozer has started converting it automatically, and you see the texture has been applied. Notice that without the material it looks rather bland, because it is the material that defines let's say the surface properties of an object, and it's not the diffuse texture. The diffuse texture basically relays only color information, but you will see the change that comes with your the materials that are applied. So in order to I'll save this sample.p3d. In order to make my life a bit easier, I'm just going to copy one of the materials from an earlier model that I have. Nope. Something that I've done, so I'll just copy one of these materials and then we'll go back to my samples. I'll call sample RVMat and just open it in your favorite editor. This is a standard super shader, so there shouldn't be anything new for you. If it is, please find the appropriate information. So no HQ. Let me put this through here. And I will copy this to my AS map and to my SMDI map as well. Notice that I keep TGA as the extension to tell Bulldozer to convert them automatically to the PAA format. This I'll bump to maybe 65 for now. I'll save it, but I'll tweak it in O2 anyway. So go back to my model, select everything, apply, data, sample, apply, okay. Now it couldn't find the textures, I suppose. If we go, yeah, so it couldn't find these. Let's try to figure out why. Ah, data, of course. So no HQ starts converting it. Yeah, now you see the definition starting to pop out, even without SMDI map. Go down here, let's put data. Again, data. Meanwhile, it's converting. So I'll save this. go here, and now we're starting to see some really nice results. So this curvature, the surface detail is really starting to pop out in our material. But we noticed that the lighting is quite different than what it was in SP2, so we need to sort of tweak it a bit. And the first thing you do is you tweak the material, the RV mat, then you go ahead and tweak your outputs. So I usually like to maybe put this a bit lower to give it a bit more diffused specularity. This is to your taste. As you know, if I lower it, it becomes a bit more diffused. If I higher it, it becomes more pronounced. The specular value, I tend to keep it around 35, something like that. And if you're using something over 200, yeah, you're doing it wrong, I'm afraid. Another important value is your Fresnel effect. I haven't been able to completely decipher these values, but I just know that if I keep increasing some of them and decreasing other, I tend to get very nice different results. So 2 might be a little bit powerful, 0, 0 and 3, see what that does, nothing. Oh, I put 20. That was not intended. So, like this already looks a bit more realistic, but maybe not shiny enough. Also, remember that you can change the color of your specular reflections, which can, yeah, aid you. But you notice that things that really have high specularity and glossiness will then take on that color almost fully. So instead of giving it color, what I usually do is maybe lower it a bit in the white value, just to give it a bit softer lighting there, as you can see on the rubber material. But okay, that's starting to look more like what I intended. Maybe bump this up a little bit. Yeah, that's okay. So now I'm starting to see that my specular and glossiness maps are not entirely how I want. So here's the real benefit of the workflow that you set up comes into play. I can go back to my model while cycling through the channels. I can identify areas where I would want it to be maybe a bit better. So in Arma, your specularity would almost always be a little bit more black, with really the specular areas a bit more pronounced. So now it's a bit more uniform, while we do have this certain edge that's standing out. So as we are in the specular channel, I can have a look at the maps that are causing this. So I can see that the leather sofa is a bit gray. That's the top part. I can leave it like that. But for example, the rubber, I might want to actually increase it. So I would go to the rubber base, this fill layer, and I go to the specular color, and I can actually tweak it. Maybe give it a bit larger. Okay, but let's say the rusty metal, this is the edge. and this is the one that's actually should be causing the wait, which one is causing the rubber tree? I really thought it was this one. Causing the high specularity there. It's already preset, but okay. So we can't change it actually because it's a material fill color. If I remove the spec, it does nothing. Okay, which one is this? Okay, wait, yeah. So I'll put it down, this one. That we don't need. Yeah, this is the one that's causing the edge wear. So I can bring it up high if I want to, and the rust I can leave like this. Rust here as well, but the base I would want to bring way down. Something like this, but just also to see the contrast. If I press M, I'll see the differences here in material now. So back to my specular. Okay, this looks more like the way I like it. Now, with glossiness, on the other hand, you would want more lighter colors in Arma, not to stand out from the crowd, let's say. So my base, I would tend to increase the glossiness a bit. This is, what is rusty metal? That is fine. Rubber tree, I would want to give it actually a more white glossiness. Sorry, more black. So I want it to be less glossy. And the sofa, let's say, also give it. I actually cannot select it. It's a material property. Okay, that's fine, because it's really set to be like leather. So now I'm more happy with my maps. They look more like what I wanted. And maybe I want to get rid of this dirt effect. So I'll go to my tank painted, and I think this is the dust. Yeah. So I don't want this dust. Maybe I want actually. I'll put a new paint layer, and maybe somebody spilled some paint. How about that? Particles. We'll give it a black mask, and do add Paint. And I'll go into Paint, but I'll select a maybe splat particle effect. I won't go into particles and all the features of Substance Painter. I suggest, if it's a tool that appeals to you, to consider getting it. With the live subscription, it's very much worth it, and I think you'll really like using it and finding out all the features. There's a lot of material online, tutorials and things like this to do some really cool things. So right now I can't. Yeah, let's do some. I don't know, some weird veiny effects. Yeah, okay, I'm fine with this. Let's see how it looks in my channels. Yeah, maybe it's a bit more specular. Doesn't do anything in gloss because it's on the same material. Okay, I'll just do a quick save and export textures again. Check that the preset is still selected, everything's still there. Do an export again. And voila, I'll just select the object. It will recognize that my textures have changed due to conversion, and I can instantly go and see the results of my changes. So the materials have changed, the textures have changed, and everything's ready to configure this object and play in game. But this is not the part of this tutorial, so I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you have picked up something new.